This weekend I was at a local charity music event where some friends were performing. When one friend pulled me aside and she said, "Zayne, you have to look into this. There's a study where water responds to human thought. It literally forms images in ice." Now, I've been interested in this idea for years, ever since I came across the work of Japanese scientist Dr. Emoto, who showed how words like love and hate could change the structure of frozen water. In fact, for most of the past 15 years, I've made a point of collecting my own drinking water from the natural spring at the base of Table Mountain here in Cape Town. Something about that water, untouched, alive, just feels different. But what if it's not just a feeling? What if water really does respond to us? What if it remembers? What if it's not just a resource, but a kind of intelligence? Tonight, we're not just chasing a theory or making assumptions. We're looking hard at visual data from one of the most grounded methodical researchers working in this field. This is not about belief, it's about evidence. My name is Zayne, and this is the Skyburst Podcast. We call it H2O, but water, this common molecule, is anything but simple. It defies explanation at times. It even breaks the rules of physics. And according to a growing body of research, it may be alive in ways we've never considered. What if water is more than a substance? What if it's a mirror of consciousness? Enter Veda Austin. A New Zealand researcher and artist, Veda Austin, developed a method that seems almost too simple. She pours water into a petri dish, thinks a thought, and places it into a freezer. And after 5 minutes and 20 seconds, pulls it out. The result? Images. Clear, undeniable images etched into thin layers of ice. This line of inquiry began decades earlier. Japanese researcher Dr. Masaru Emoto became famous for photographing frozen water crystals. Water exposed to the words love and gratitude formed radiant hexagons, while anger and hate produced chaos. Emoto was ridiculed, but his images, just like Veda's, spoke to people. Because as Veda says, a picture speaks 1,000 words, and water has a lot to say.
Wow.
So this is my very, very first ice image that we talked about, the hand. As you can see, it really does look like an X-ray of a hand.
5 fingers and everything.
And everything. This was the fish. This was the second photo I ever talked about or ever took. Here's the outline of the fish, the gills, the eye, the fin, and the tail. And you see it looks feathery. The reason it looks feathery is because when you freeze seawater that you've collected from the beach, it freezes really differently than water that you've collected from a spring, for example. I've talked about using words. And one of the reasons I started using words was also to see whether or not if I used a word that was a concept rather than something that I could be projecting, because a lot of people think and say, well, you might just be projecting what you think something looks like into the water. But even saying that is suggesting that water can pick up on my thought projection, which is, I have seen that. But within this situation, I wanted to see what water might design for a word like ego, which is a concept, right? And if I can zoom in, hopefully, if you see, there's a little face, big shoulders, long neck, and a big balloon head. For the word ego, that's pretty remarkable. This is in Hindi. This word is pya, which means love. This is pugio, which is Latin for dagger. Here is Japanese for the word snow. And so we start to see, even within the conception here, it looks like an egg with a sperm inside. So it was really amazing to me. IVF is only 3 letters. They don't even make any sense. They don't make a word. We know what that means, but it looks like a needle going into an egg.
Wow.
crop circled. These are just some of the repeatability that I'm showing, where I've used this word and seen these symbols appear. This is 2 words, which is, different than just the one. So we have this symbol appear.
Water doesn't replicate exactly what you think. It renders, it interprets, like an artist responding to a feeling, not an instruction. Ask it to show you a tree, it paints one. Think of an arrow, it shapes one. Water isn't acting like a machine, it's responding like a creative mind, and every image is born from relationship, not control. Veda's method revealed something strange. The most responsive moment came not when the water was fully frozen, but during a liminal state, half liquid, half crystal. She calls it the liquid crystal phase. This matches the theory of structured water, also called the fourth phase, proposed by Dr. Gerald Pollack. In this state, water becomes more ordered, light absorbing, and more biologically intelligent. It's water with memory.
This is the 3 stages of freezing. This is what you want to see in the freezer, where there is this is all liquid water, and then these things here are ice. So that's what it should look like in your freezer. It will look different each time, but that's what you're going to see. Then you've overfrozen when you have an ice sandwich where there's liquid in the middle, and then a solid looks like there's tons of like all these little bubbles, and it's really, really hard to see the imagery. Again, spirit, blood, and body. That's what I meant when I said that. This is what it looks like when you're freezing. This is where I would take the water out at this stage. This has been sped up in the freezer.
She froze tears, collected in moments of joy, grief, and while cutting onions. And what emerged was pretty profound. Joyful tears formed expanding hexagons like sacred geometries echoing outwards. Grief tears barely formed as if sorrow stalls creation. And onion tears, they formed an iris, the eye's last snapshot. Water, it seemed, reflected more than just thought. It mirrors emotion.
I have taken photos of tears, different emotional tears, but I'll tell a story that I really love. So I remember hearing this, that in our deepest sorrow, and sometimes even our greatest joy, where we cry tears of joy, and that can happen too. But if we just look at it in this place for the sorrow part, and we have these tears that come out of our eye ducts and roll around our cheeks, and our face has been designed in such a perfect way that when we cry, the tears come from the eye ducts around our cheeks back towards our mouth, because they have been reordered and restructured to help heal our heart. And yet we're told, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And yet the tears themselves have become a medicine for us. And we are our own medicine in so many ways. And tears are one of those medicines.
Over thousands of tests, Veda began to see repeating symbols, not random, not abstract, consistent responses to the same words and the same thoughts. She calls them hydroglyphs. Ask for marriage, you get a ring. You ask for ego, and you get a balloon-shaped head. Ask who you are, and the water writes, I am. Once, Veda asked the water, do you know my name? What formed in the ice were her own initials, VA, in the same stylized shape that she uses. Another time, she tested the idea of trust. She asked the water to show her something secret, just for her. Then she lied, intending to post it online. The response? A large, unmistakable no in the ice. For days, the water gave her nothing, as if communication had been paused. Not lost, withheld.
Here are some where I've done it again, but this time I asked a slightly different question. I asked, can you please show me my name at birth? Now, over here is a hydroglyph. Now, hydroglyphs are different to the art of water. That is where I've seen a lot of repeatability. I'll be able to show you that more examples soon. But when you have two circles like this has got the energetic meaning of conception. And when it's one circle alone, it means complete. So here we have two hydroglyphs, which means complete conception. And then we have my two initials, but not linked, because I only started linking them when I became older. Here is where I fell asleep and forgot about it, and it still designed the big VA after asking the same question.
Water doesn't just respond. It plays, it teases, it interprets things, sometimes very literally. When asked about a breakup song, water froze the letters EX. Another time, it formed an image resembling two symbolic bodies after being placed beside a bed with a crystal. Veda laughed and said, "Ice porn. Water, it seems, understands context."
And I came to understand and see that water loves to pick up on words and design words from songs. So a funny sense of humor one is that because I'm doing all genres, it's not necessarily the one I love. I actually leave the room when we do this, so I do my best not to interfere. But we did one with Taylor Swift's song about breaking up with her ex and how we're never going to get back together.
Which are about all of them. Which one of all of them are they?
and in the ice, there was two letters, EX. And I was like, oh my God, that's really, really interesting and really funny. And then I used the song Crocodile Rock, and I saw this crocodile with a big smile in the ice. And you just never know what you're going to get. So I mean, with over 52,000 photos of water responding in these ways, I think it's really important to tell people just how much work I've actually got. It's almost becomes difficult to choose which one because there's so many and it's a constant conversation.
Language may not have started with humans. It may have begun in water. Hydroglyphs, those repeating symbols, appear like proto-language. Some resemble cuneiform, others mimic symbols from early alphabets. Water doesn't read English. It seems to comprehend intention.
Now, here are some examples of the 3 ways that water shares information. So these are what we call signature patterns. So this is the signature pattern of spring water collected and frozen within an hour. Spring water structures will change the longer it's been sitting in a bottle or the longer it's been not moving. This is the signature pattern of rain. This is the signature pattern of water through a filter. This is the signature pattern of municipal tap water. Although we need to really zoom in on these, this is the signature pattern of seawater. And in each little indentation, there's a little star. So it's covered in like little subwoofers with stars inside. It's actually a very, very beautiful. It's just a little harder to see because you've seen the entire dish in that. This is where I've used picture influences or inspirations, as I prefer to call them, where I've basically printed a picture I like and then put the dish on it for 30 seconds. That's my protocol. It's not too long. It's not too short. Water is quantum. It often knows what I'm doing before I even do it. But people like to have some protocol, so I say 30 seconds, and you can see the outcome. And this is just a very small example of hydroglyphs where you have repeatability of imagery, where I've used two words, both marriage and ring show this ring imagery. So I thought, well, a really interesting thing to do, since water loves to design in pictures, would be to show it photos of different people to see if we can see facial recognition in water. What would happen? So I did that with my friend Wendy's photo here, and you can see that it designed her face. So what happens if I take this image and show it to water, the image it designed? So that's what I did. And then it designed a negative of the face. And I think this is
Hmm.
really important for people to see because it's not so random when you see these things. And then I took the negative of the face and put the dish of water on top of that, and you can see there is another face happening, but it's not quite as clear. But you can see there's still the outline there. So this is really, really interesting stuff. And then I've taken various different photos of people and shown that it looks like the pictures I've shown it to. This is where I asked a lady who was pregnant to take a sip of water and then leave me the rest whilst she was thinking of her baby. Now, there's a couple of really interesting things about this. It's where you have the outline of the spine of the child, which is whenever we see embryos, it's always like light around the whole back of the child. But what's interesting is she was holding her tummy as she was thinking about her baby, and you can see a hand, a light hand right here down the
Huh.
bottom. And the next day she went for her ultrasound, and you can see it compared here. This is an interesting one, and I've done this quite often, where I'll let the ice melt and then refreeze it to see how long an impression will last for. So, and I find this interesting too because we don't see the face, we just see the attif crown designed in both situations here. But this was where the original ice imagery, I let it melt and then it designed, there was still an imprint in the ice. This is where we're looking at anatomy, where I've put, just put my foot over the dish for 30 seconds and taken it off, and we see in the entirety. So quite often we'll put, a toe in the ice and it'll show the whole foot. So it's a little bit like the seed reading the whole full potential. But this one here is interesting where I put my thumb in the water. And it designed my thumb and the nail, but you might notice that there is a chip in the nail here. What's interesting is this is like a sign of hydromancy because 3 hours after doing this, I chipped my nail in exactly the same space.
It read your future.
Yeah, and it's not the first time I've seen that. This is where I've let this ice melt and refrozen it. Now we look at pictures of animals. I mean, there's just endless different examples, but the one with the dog, the second one with the nose, I love that one because a dog smelt the water and the water just designed the dog's nose.
Tap water often appears chaotic under Veda's lens, but give it care, place it near your heart, or speak kindly, and it will begin to reorganize. It forms ferns, petals, structure. Even polluted or processed water carries potential, and intention seems to restore pattern. Scientists search for alien life by asking one question: is there water? But what if water isn't just a condition for life? What if it is life? Or at least a conscious medium through which life expresses itself? Water has no end. It evaporates, condenses, and returns. The water you drink may have flowed through a glacier 10,000 years ago, or a tree in the Amazon just last week. It's a traveler, but not through space, through time, carrying impressions, environments, and perhaps even experience. Even when water looks chaotic under the microscope, it often holds underlying symmetry. Veda's tests show that when chaotic water is exposed to music, kindness, or natural spring water, it realigns. It suggests a principle. Chaos is not the absence of order. It may be order waiting to be remembered. At its core, water is a conductor of light. It reflects it, refracts it, stores it. And in its frozen forms, it even begins to resemble photonic architecture. If light is information, then water is its language, and we are listening in. This isn't just about water, it's about relationship. How we approach the world shapes what the world reflects back to us. Every interaction with water becomes a mirror, not of who we are, but of how we feel and how we choose to engage. Try it. Take a moment before your next glass of water. Hold it. Say thank you. Speak to it like a friend and see if you feel the difference. Because maybe, just maybe, water is already in conversation with you. We've simply forgotten how to respond. We began with a simple question: what is water? But perhaps the deeper question is, what is water trying to tell us? It responds to thought, reflects emotion, creates language, and it does all of this silently, not with words, but with light and with memory. If you enjoy our content, please hit like and subscribe. It helps us keep asking the big questions. You can also watch the full conversation with Veda Austin on Emilio Ortiz's channel in the description below. My name is Zayne. This is the Skyburst Podcast. Until next time, stay curious and love your water. Cheers.